The galaxy had been at peace for centuries. The Galactic Council had ensured that every species, from the mighty Karish to the intelligent Trions, lived in relative harmony, each knowing their place in the cosmic order. War had become a distant memory for most, a myth told in stories rather than lived experiences. But as the old saying goes, peace is fragile. It was on this quiet night, under the vastness of the stars, that the first crack appeared. A sudden, urgent transmission echoed through the communication channels of the Galactic Council. It came from General Ktor, a respected and feared commander of the Vortian Empire. His reputation preceded him. A battle-hardened warrior, he had led many successful campaigns against rebels and rogue factions across the galaxy. But today, it wasn't a typical mission report. The message, however, was brief, direct, and chilling. His voice, usually filled with the cold confidence of a military leader, now carried a hint of fear. His words echoed in the ears of every council member who listened. If you don't stop them, Earth will unleash something you're not prepared for. These words hit like a shockwave, rattling the very core of the Galactic Council. General Ktor's voice held a warning, one that suggested something far more dangerous than they could imagine. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the council members in stunned silence. What did he mean by unleash something? What did Earth have, something so terrifying that even Ktor, who had faced countless foes, was now sending out desperate warnings? Across the galaxy, whispers spread like wildfire. Ktor had never shown fear before. If he was terrified, there was something serious to worry about. The council immediately began analyzing the message. In the farthest reaches of space, the Vortian fleet had been tracking something near Earth, something large, something menacing. General Ktor had already seen it firsthand, and it made him realize that the peaceful existence they had all taken for granted could come crashing down. The idea of Earth having the power to threaten the galaxy was laughable to most of the council. For centuries, Earth had been a quiet, mostly isolated planet, a world of relatively primitive technology, known for its rugged, resourceful humans, but nothing more. The Council had underestimated humanity's potential. They thought the idea of humans becoming a real power was nothing more than a myth, a joke. But now, that joke was coming back to haunt them. The Galactic Council's leaders quickly convened in a high-security chamber. The atmosphere was tense, thick with unease. Each representative, some of the greatest minds in the galaxy, could not fathom what General Ktor had meant. "I've heard rumors about Earth's warships," one of the council members, a tall, scaly reptilian named Orcs, murmured. His voice was laced with doubt. "But they are no match for our fleets. No way could they have developed anything that could threaten us." "But what if General Ktor is right?" asked Selah, a silver-skinned diplomat from the Thuriz Alliance. "We've seen strange anomalies near their solar system. Unknown ships, strange readings that don't match any known species technology." The council members exchanged worried glances. A few moments passed in silence. Then, one by one, they voiced their disbelief. "Impossible," said one council member, a gaseous being who communicated through electromagnetic pulses. "The humans have nothing of significant value. Their military technology is outdated." "You're underestimating them," replied the council leader, a being known only as Empress Visera. She was a towering figure, with the power to see through the fabric of space itself, and her wisdom was well known. But even she felt a growing sense of dread in her heart. "We have made a grave mistake in underestimating Earth. If they have indeed hidden something, we must find it before it's too late." The tension in the room grew, and the atmosphere became heavier with every passing second. They had always believed that their advanced technologies and mighty fleets were unstoppable. But now, it seemed that they might have overlooked something far more dangerous, something they never thought possible. The Galactic Council had relied on their superior weaponry, artificial intelligence, and centuries of experience. They had faced the greatest of threats: unstoppable wars, powerful empires, and rogue species with unimaginable power. But what if Earth wasn't like any enemy they had ever encountered before? As the debate grew more heated, a series of encrypted messages from other parts of the galaxy began to flood the Council's network. Messages from military outposts near Earth's solar system revealed something shocking: an entire fleet of human warships, larger and more advanced than anyone had anticipated. It was clear that Earth was preparing for something. The most startling report came from a secret base on the moon of Titan, where the human fleet was being assembled. There, they had developed new cloaking technologies, anti-gravity systems, and weapons that could rival the most advanced alien tech in the galaxy. It wasn't just an army. They were preparing for full-scale war. The humans had built a fleet of unimaginable proportions, but what was even more concerning was their sudden movement towards the stars. They had been silent for centuries, hiding their true strength. Now, Earth's warships were ready, and they were heading into the unknown, towards the very heart of the galaxy. The Council scrambled to prepare for the worst. Messages were sent out to the fleets, but the questions remained unanswered. What had driven Earth to prepare for war? What had happened to make them change their course so drastically? And yet, despite the urgency of the situation, there was still one major question that plagued their minds. What did General Exor mean when he said that Earth would unleash something? What was this mysterious power that he feared so much? The Galactic Council had long been divided over humanity's place in the galaxy. Some saw them as insignificant, while others recognized their resilience and cunning. But now, the Council was faced with an undeniable truth. Humanity had the potential to shake the very foundation of their galaxy. The time of peace they had known was coming to an end. Empress Ysera knew that the only way to ensure the survival of their empire was to act fast. She ordered all fleets to prepare for immediate deployment, but something deep within her mind told her that no amount of preparation would be enough if Earth truly was on the brink of unleashing their full potential. The peaceful days of the galaxy were gone, and with the arrival of the humans' powerful fleet, a new era was about to begin. The Galactic Council had no idea what kind of battle they were about to face, but they knew one thing for sure: Earth's warships would not be easy to stop. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy was about to feel the weight of human fury. Triton was a small, but strategically important human colony located on one of Neptune's moons. Despite being far from the center of galactic power, it had become a thriving hub for Earth's expansion into the outer solar system. The people of Triton were proud of their independence and resilience, but nothing could prepare them for what was about to come. It was a peaceful evening when the sky above Triton was suddenly shattered by the screeching sound of enemy ships descending from the dark expanse of space. The invaders, an unknown, heavily armed force, had come without warning. They didn't send any messages, didn't give any ultimatum. They simply appeared, their ships enormous and menacing, blocking out the stars as they hovered above the colony. The moment they arrived, the chaos began. On the surface, Bonner, a seasoned soldier, was preparing for a routine patrol with his team. His expression hardened when the first explosions rocked the base. He could feel the ground shake under his boots as alarms blared in every corner of the colony. The lights flickered, and for a split second there was nothing but panic. But Bonner wasn't one to give in to fear. He quickly assessed the situation, his mind working faster than his heartbeat, and barked orders to his soldiers. "Get to your posts. They're coming in fast." Bonner shouted over the din of chaos. His voice was steady, a rock in the storm. He had faced enemy fire before, but this was different. The invading force was like nothing humanity had encountered. Their ships were sleek and powerful, bristling with advanced weapons. They unleashed a barrage of firepower, and Bonner watched as several of his comrades fell. But his determination never wavered. The soldiers fought back valiantly, using their Earth-made tech, simple but effective against their overwhelming opponents. But it was clear that no amount of grit or bravery would be enough to hold off this superior force. The invaders were relentless. Bonner knew they were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched. His team's last stand was an act of defiance. As the battle raged on, His comrades fought with everything they had, but the invaders' weapons tore through their defenses like paper. The human soldiers fell one by one. Bonner himself fought fiercely, taking down several enemies with his last ounce of strength. But it was futile. The sheer size of the enemy force was overwhelming. Through the chaos, Bonner managed to send one final message to the Galactic Council. His voice was weak, but his words carried with them the fire of a soldier who would not go down quietly. "We are not afraid. We will make you regret this." Those words, simple but filled with a burning promise, were his final act. Bonner and his entire squad perished in the heat of battle, their deaths a symbol of human bravery, of a people willing to stand their ground no matter the cost. The invaders, though successful in their attack, would soon realize they had made a grave mistake. As the final traces of Bonner's message echoed across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was rocked to its core. The transmission reached the highest levels of power, and the impact was immediate. For centuries, the Council had underestimated humanity, dismissing them as primitive and unworthy of being a real threat. But now, something had changed. The death of a handful of human soldiers on Triton sent ripples through the galaxy, and suddenly, the perception of Earth shifted. For the first time, the Council could no longer dismiss the humans as weak. Bonner's words resonated with a chilling truth. Humanity had been pushed too far, and now they were showing a strength that no one had anticipated. The Council had believed that humans could never pose a real threat, but Bonner's sacrifice proved them wrong. The sheer defiance in his final message struck a nerve with the Council members. They had underestimated the depth of humanity's resolve. Back in the Council chamber, leaders from various species gathered in shock. Empress Isara, the one who had previously downplayed the idea of humanity as a potential threat, now stood before her fellow leaders, her face drawn with concern. The news from Triton had rattled her. For the first time in her long reign, she felt the weight of uncertainty. She had seen the rise and fall of many civilizations, but this was different. Are we sure the humans did not have any outside help? Orcs, the reptilian warlord, asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. He was still grappling with the idea that an insignificant species like humanity could pose a real challenge. "It doesn't matter," replied Sayla, the Thera's diplomat, her face grim. "What matters is that humanity has shown us something we didn't see before: resolve and a willingness to fight to the last. The humans may be underdeveloped in technology, but their spirit, their drive, it's something we cannot ignore." The room fell silent as each leader reflected on the implications of the attack on Triton. The message was clear: humanity would not be cowed. The death of Bonner and his team was not just a loss, it was a declaration of war. The Galactic Council had always prided itself on maintaining peace through overwhelming force. Their fleets, their technology, their artificial intelligence, they had been designed to keep the galaxy in check. But now, faced with a species that had endured years of conflict, that had stood tall even when surrounded by superior forces, they realized something crucial. Humanity had potential, and that potential was dangerous. The decision to act against Earth was no longer a matter of if, but when. The question that now lingered in the minds of the Galactic Council was not how to defeat humanity, but whether or not they could. As fleets were mobilized and strategies formulated, Empress Isara's mind was filled with a troubling thought. The humans had always been seen as the underdogs in the grand scheme of the galaxy, but Bonner's final words had turned that perception on its head. "We will make you regret this." A promise, yes, but also a warning. Back on Earth, the news of the attack on Triton spread quickly. The human race had never felt more united in their history. People rallied behind the memory of Bonner and his soldiers, their sacrifice lighting a fire in the hearts of every human. It was no longer a matter of surviving. They had to fight for their place in the galaxy. Bonner's words became a rallying cry, a symbol of humanity's unwavering determination. For the first time, the Galactic Council was forced to acknowledge humanity as more than just a nuisance. They had proven that, when pushed, they would fight. and they would fight with everything they had. The invaders had underestimated the power of human will, and now the galaxy would have to face the consequences. The stage was set for an inevitable clash, a clash between those who believed in the power of technology and those who believed in the strength of spirit. The fate of the galaxy rested in the balance, and the actions taken now would determine whether peace would prevail or whether the galaxy would burn. And so, with Bonner's death ringing in their ears, the Galactic Council had no choice but to prepare for what was coming. The humans had shown their hand, and now the galaxy would learn that Earth was not a place to be ignored. The breaking point had been reached, and the war for the future of the galaxy was about to begin. The vastness of space had never seemed so small or so dangerous. The Galactic Council had never imagined a scenario where humans, humble, seemingly primitive beings, would rise up to challenge their technological superiority. But now, as Earth's true power was about to be revealed, the galaxy would be forced to reckon with the consequences of underestimating the human race. For the first time, the true scale of humanity's military might was about to unfold. The world had been preparing for this moment for years, silently amassing a fleet that no one had seen, no one had expected. They had been the unseen giants, biding their time, waiting for the right moment. That moment was now. On Earth's command, the colossal flagship Eternal Resolve emerged from the shadows of space. It was unlike any ship the galaxy had ever seen. A massive, imposing presence that dwarfed even the most advanced warships of the Galactic Council. For a moment, the sky above Earth was filled with a brilliant flash of light as the ship deactivated its cloaking device, revealing itself to the galaxy for the first time. The ship was a marvel of human ingenuity, its sleek black hull designed for stealth and speed, but with firepower that could obliterate entire fleets in the blink of an eye. General Exor's face drained of color as he stared at the Eternal Resolve on his screen. The ship's enormous size alone was enough to strike terror into the hearts of any commander, but it was the sheer power radiating from it that truly shook him. This wasn't just a ship, it was a weapon unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Thor whispered to himself in disbelief, "We've made a mistake." The chilling realization washed over him. All this time, the Galactic Council had dismissed humanity as weak. Their soldiers, their ships, their weapons, they had been nothing more than a joke in the eyes of the galaxy's most powerful factions. But now, standing before him, was undeniable proof that humanity had been hiding their true strength. Exor's mind raced. This wasn't supposed to happen. He had miscalculated. The Council had miscalculated. The humans weren't the underdogs. They were the apex predators. The transmission from Earth hit the Galactic Council like a slap in the face. For the first time, they were seeing the full extent of what humans had kept hidden. The Eternal Resolve wasn't just one ship. It was the flagship of a massive fleet that had been lying in wait, ready to strike at a moment's notice. And now that moment had come. On Earth, the command center was alive with activity. The humans were mobilizing their forces with incredible precision. Their strategy was clear: hit hard, hit fast, and don't give the enemy a chance to recover. The galaxy had underestimated them for too long, and now it was time to show just how powerful they truly were. The human fleet, led by the Eternal Resolve, opened fire. Orbital bombardments lit up the heavens as human warships unleashed their deadly payloads. Each shot was calculated, each strike made with pinpoint accuracy. The enemy ships, once so confident in their technology, found themselves powerless against the relentless assault. The human ships, equipped with AI systems and hyper-advanced technology, moved with eerie precision, striking where the enemy least expected. They were like predators in the night, silent, swift, and deadly. Alien vessels, once thought to be invincible, now crumbled under the barrage. Their shields were no match for the sheer firepower of humanity's weapons. General Exor watched helplessly as his fleet began to disintegrate before his eyes. For the first time, he saw fear in the eyes of his soldiers as they scrambled to return fire, but their efforts were futile. The humans were everywhere, appearing out of nowhere, striking with such force that the enemy didn't know where to defend. The Eternal Resolve was leading the charge, its advanced AI systems calculating every move with flawless accuracy. It was as if the ship could predict the enemy's every action, countering them before they even had a chance to react. The human strategy was simple yet effective. Hit and run, strike with extreme precision, and leave before the enemy could retaliate. It was a dance of destruction, and the humans were the masters of it. Exor's mind was spinning. This was no longer a battle, it was a slaughter. His forces, once considered the mightiest in the galaxy, were being torn apart by the relentless human assault. He had no idea how to stop them. The humans had turned the tables so quickly that even the most advanced military minds in the Galactic Council had no answers. The enemy was unpredictable, their strategies unlike anything the Council had prepared for. But Thor wasn't the only one who was shocked. Back on Earth, the excitement was palpable. News of the battle was being broadcast across the globe in real time. People gathered in their homes, in the streets, watching in awe as their ships fought with unprecedented power. They had long feared that they were too small, too weak to make a difference in the galactic scale of things. But now, they saw their ships tearing through the skies, their weapons turning the tide of the war. It was a moment of triumph, a moment that proved that humanity was not just a footnote in the story of the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. The tide of battle was shifting in real time. The human fleet, with its advanced AI, was picking apart the enemy lines piece by piece. Ships that had once seemed invincible were being ripped apart by the sheer power of humanity's weaponry. The Earth's fleet wasn't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to dominate, to take their rightful place in the galaxy. For General Exor, it was too late. His fleet was in disarray, his forces scattered and retreating. The humans were relentless, and they showed no signs of slowing down. Thor's mind raced as he tried to think of a way to turn the battle in his favor. But the more he thought, the more he realized that the humans had already won. The strategy they had used was flawless, too fast, too precise for anyone to counter. The Eternal Resolve was now tearing through Thor's flagship, a symbol of his entire military effort. The collision was massive, a catastrophic explosion shaking the very fabric of space. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Thor could feel his breath catch in his chest as he watched the destruction unfold before his eyes. The humans had finally shown them just how wrong they had been. "We've underestimated them," Thor muttered under his breath, his voice filled with disbelief. The human fleet had surpassed all expectations, and now, with their unmatched firepower and tactics, they were proving that they were a force that could not be ignored. In the face of such overwhelming power, all Exor could do was watch as the tide of the war turned in humanity's favor. The destruction of Exor's fleet was not just a victory for Earth. It was a declaration to the galaxy that humanity was no longer to be dismissed, no longer the underdogs. With the Eternal Resolve and its fleet tearing through the stars, the message was clear. The humans had arrived, and they weren't going anywhere. The future of the galaxy was now in their hands. As the dust settled, the remaining forces of the Galactic Council began to retreat, their resolve shattered. The humans had made their mark, and they would never be forgotten. The battle was far from over, but one thing was certain. The beast had been unleashed, and it was hungry for victory. The battle for the galaxy was far from over, but the toll it had taken on humanity was already becoming painfully clear. The death of Bonner, the brave soldier who had fought to the very end to protect his people, had sent a ripple through the human fleet. His final message, "We are not afraid. We will make you regret this," was still echoing across their communication systems, a rallying cry for every soldier, every officer, and every human who had joined this war. His words reminded them all of the stakes, the reason they were fighting. Admiral Zane, the stoic leader of the human fleet, had never shown his emotions in battle. He was a man of strategy, a tactician who had earned the respect of his comrades for his calm and collected demeanor. But now, in the wake of Bonner's death, the weight of the war had begun to take its toll on him. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the destruction unfold in front of him, and for the first time in the war, he allowed himself to feel the pain of loss. He closed his eyes for a moment, his thoughts drifting to the fallen soldiers who had given their lives for the cause. "We fight for them," Admiral Zane said, his voice quiet but filled with resolve. "For everyone who's fallen." His words carried through the fleet, a reminder of what they were all fighting for. It wasn't just about victory anymore. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about honor. It was about the memory of those who had died. People like Bonner, who had fought with everything they had until the very end. The war had taken so much from them, but Admiral Zane knew that they couldn't stop now. They couldn't let the fallen soldiers' sacrifice be in vain. Their fight had to continue, not just for the victory, but for the memory of every life lost. The fleet, now more united than ever, pressed on. But war is never without its price, and the cost was becoming clear as they fought deeper into enemy territory. The further they pushed, the harder it became to ignore the realities of what they were doing. The brutality of the war was undeniable. In one of the fiercest battles yet, a human soldier named Corporal Harris found himself locked in a brutal close combat skirmish with an alien enemy. The clash was fierce, both sides fighting with all the intensity and hatred they could muster. Harris, however, found himself at a crossroads. The alien he was facing, a member of the same species that had taken so many lives, was down, wounded and vulnerable. In the heat of the moment, with the battle raging around him, Harris hesitated. He looked into the alien's eyes and saw something that made him pause, a flicker of fear, a flicker of recognition. For a brief moment, he saw not an enemy, but another being caught in the same war, fighting for survival, just like him. The thought crossed his mind. Could he spare this alien's life? Was there a way to show mercy amidst the chaos of war? But as he stood there, contemplating, the sound of blaster fire filled the air. His comrades, engaged in a firefight nearby, were caught in the crossfire. Harris' hesitation proved fatal. The alien, realizing the opportunity, lunged at him, knocking his weapon aside. In the split second that followed, the alien soldier fired, and Harris fell to the ground, his life extinguished in an instant. It was a painful, devastating moment, a reminder that mercy in the heat of battle often came at a terrible price. Harris had tried to show compassion, but the war had no room for such gestures. His death was a tragic consequence of the choices made in battle, a harsh reality of war where every decision could lead to irreversible consequences. And yet, despite the brutality of his death, there was something undeniably human about the act. In that split second of hesitation, Harris had reminded everyone that even in the midst of war, humanity's capacity for mercy, for empathy, was something worth fighting for. Admiral Zane, receiving the news of Harris' death, felt the weight of it deep in his chest. He had lost men before, countless soldiers whose names would never be remembered by the galaxy. But Harris' death struck him differently. It wasn't just the loss of a soldier, it was the loss of the very thing they were fighting for, their humanity. Zane's mind flashed back to the words of his mentor, a veteran of many wars, who had once told him, "In battle, it's easy to forget what you're fighting for. But never forget, we fight for the ones who can't fight anymore. We fight to make the world better for those who are left behind." Those words echoed in Zane's mind as he stood in the command center, staring at the battlefield. The cost of war wasn't just in lives lost. It was in the souls that were scared, in the humanity that was chipped away with every battle fought, every decision made. But there was no time to dwell on the loss. The war continued. The human fleet pushed forward, their resolve hardening with each new loss. They knew what they were fighting for, and they knew that the fight was far from over. But the toll was growing. The men and women who had once joined the fight full of hope and determination were beginning to feel the weight of their choices. The sacrifices they had made were piling up, and for some, it was becoming harder to see the light at the end of the tunnel. On the battlefield, the fighting raged on. Ships were torn apart, soldiers fell, and the relentless cycle of war continued. But amidst the chaos, there were moments of clarity, moments where the soldiers remembered what they were fighting for. It was those moments, fleeting as they were, that kept them going. For every life lost, for every soldier who gave their all, there was the promise of a better future, one where humanity's place in the galaxy would no longer be in question. But the price of that future was steep. Admiral Zane knew it. Every time he saw another soldier fall, every time he heard of another life lost, it reminded him of the heavy cost of war. And yet, despite it all, he couldn't stop. He couldn't let their sacrifices be in vain. The humans were fighting not just for survival, but for the chance to reshape the galaxy in their own image, to make sure that the mistakes of the past were not repeated, that the horrors they had faced would never be forgotten. As the battle continued, the true cost of war became more apparent. It wasn't just about winning or losing, it was about what the soldiers had to give up to fight. And as each new soldier took their place on the front lines, they knew that they were not just fighting for victory. They were fighting for something much more precious, their humanity. The time had come for humanity's final strike. After months of relentless warfare, the human fleet, led by their flagship Eternal Resolve, set its course for the heart of the enemy's territory, the invaders' homeworld. The journey was long and perilous, but humanity's resolve was unshakable. They had made it this far, and now, they were determined to end the war once and for all. The Eternal Resolve and its accompanying warships were a sight to behold, their massive forms cutting through the darkness of space, each ship carrying the weight of the lives that had been lost, the sacrifices that had been made. These were no longer just warships. They were symbols of humanity's strength, their resilience, and their refusal to be conquered. The fleet was ready. The final battle was near. As the fleet approached the invaders' homeworld, the Galactic Council became aware of the impending threat. Panic spread among their ranks. They had underestimated humanity for far too long, and now they were on the brink of facing the consequences of their arrogance. Desperate to prevent total annihilation, the Council made one final attempt to intervene. A transmission blared through the human fleet's comms. It was the voice of a high-ranking Council official, their tone full of fear and desperation. "Please, stop. We didn't know. We didn't understand." The message was a plea for mercy, a last-ditch effort to halt the impending destruction. But humanity, hardened by the horrors of war, responded with cold finality. The voice of Admiral Zane, the leader who had seen so much loss, filled the comms, clear and unwavering. "We gave you peace," he said, his voice steady but full of anger. "And you killed us. Now you will face our fury." The words echoed through the fleet, a declaration of intent. No longer would humanity be the victim. No longer would they wait for the mercy of others. This was their moment, their final act of defiance. The Eternal Resolve and the other ships moved closer to their target, ready to unleash everything they had. As the fleet approached the invaders' homeworld, the galactic forces scrambled to mount a defense. But it was too late. Humanity's tactics were too advanced, their strategies too precise. Using a combination of cloaking technology and AI-driven strategies, the humans launched a rapid, devastating assault. The Eternal Resolve deployed its advanced cloaking device, vanishing from sight, and then reappeared in the heart of the enemy's defenses, launching a barrage of missiles and energy blasts. The alien forces were unprepared for the sheer force of the attack. Their ships, once thought to be invincible, were now vulnerable. The humans' cloaked ships tore through the defenses, their weapons cutting through the enemy ranks with ruthless efficiency. The human fleet had become a deadly force, swift, relentless, and unyielding. The alien homeworld's defenses began to crumble under the assault. Massive energy shields that once protected the planet flickered and failed. The alien ships that had been so confident in their superiority were now on the defensive, desperately trying to regroup and mount a counterattack. But humanity's AI-driven tactics and fast-paced strikes kept them on the back foot. Every movement, every decision, was calculated with surgical precision. No corner of the alien fleet was safe. Amidst the chaos, the human soldiers fought with a fury that was fueled by years of suffering, by the memory of those who had fallen in battle. They fought not just for victory, but for revenge, for the countless lives lost, for the families torn apart, and for the future that had been stolen from them. But even as the humans closed in on their final objective, the complete destruction of the alien homeworld, there was a sense of melancholy that hung over the fleet. The victory, while hard-earned, felt bittersweet. For all the destruction they had wrought, for all the alien ships they had crippled and destroyed, the cost of the war was clear. So many lives had been lost. So much had been sacrificed. As the final blows were dealt, and the alien homeworld's defenses crumbled into nothingness, a heavy silence descended upon the human fleet. The victory was theirs, but at what cost? The images of fallen soldiers, the faces of those who had given everything for this moment, lingered in the minds of the survivors. Admiral Zane, standing on the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, watched as the last remnants of the alien fleet were destroyed. The battle was over. The war was won. But the weight of it all was almost too much to bear. The silence on the bridge was broken only by the hum of the ship's systems, but Admiral Zane's thoughts were elsewhere. He thought of Bonner, the brave soldier whose final message had inspired them all to push forward. He thought of Corporal Harris, who had made the ultimate sacrifice in the heat of battle. He thought of all the men and women who had fought and died, and of those who would never return home. As the human fleet began to retreat from the shattered remnants of the alien homeworld, Zane could feel the emotional toll of the war pressing down on him. The sense of victory was there, but it was tempered by grief and loss. There were no celebrations, no cheers of triumph. Instead, there was only the quiet acknowledgement of the cost they had paid. In the aftermath, as the human fleet sailed back into the void of space, the reality of what had transpired began to settle in. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had proven itself. The Galactic Council had learned the hard way that humanity was not to be underestimated. But that victory, hard won as it was, had come at an incalculable price. The war was over. The invaders were defeated. But for those who had fought, for those who had lost everything, the true cost of victory was something that could never be measured in ships destroyed or enemies vanquished. It was a cost that could only be felt in the hearts of the survivors, who knew that the scars of war would stay with them forever. The battle had ended, the alien forces were in disarray, and their once powerful fleet lay in ruins. The devastation left behind was a testament to humanity's power and resolve. But even in victory, the galaxy felt the weight of the cost. The stars themselves seemed to dim, as if mourning the price that had been paid for peace. The war had ended, but its scars would be felt throughout the galaxy for centuries to come. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council had no choice but to sign a peace treaty with humanity. They were defeated, their homeworlds shattered, and their fleets destroyed. The once proud alien races were now left to pick up the pieces, and they had no option but to concede to humanity's demands. But even as they signed the treaty, the words of Admiral Zane echoed through the chambers of the Galactic Council, making it clear that this was not a victory without consequences. "We will never forget what you did," Admiral Zane had said, his voice cold and unwavering. The words were a reminder that the Galactic Council's actions had not been forgotten. The peace was not born of mercy, but of fear. Humanity had proven itself capable of unimaginable destruction, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the peace treaty was signed, the leaders of the Galactic Council tried to mask their fear with forced smiles and pleasantries, but the tension in the room was palpable. They knew that the balance of power had shifted, and humanity had become the new dominant force in the galaxy. The once subjugated species, the underdogs of the cosmos, were now the ones in control. Admiral Zane stood outside the council chambers, looking out at the stars. The weight of the war, the lives lost, the sacrifices made, it all seemed to hang in the air around him. He had led humanity to victory, but the victory felt hollow. The cost of the war had been too high, and he could not shake the image of the faces of the soldiers who had given their lives for this moment. "We've won," he said softly to himself, his eyes fixed on the endless void of space. But at what cost? The question lingered in the air, unanswered. The galaxy was forever changed, and humanity's power was undeniable. But the victory came with a heavy price. The destruction of countless worlds, the loss of so many lives. It was a weight that would never be fully lifted. As Zane stared into the vastness of space, he thought about what the future held. The galaxy had never seen anything like humanity's power before. The once great empires that ruled the stars were now broken, their leaders defeated. The humans had claimed their place at the top, and now they would shape the future of the galaxy. But what would that future look like? Would humanity become like the very beings they had fought against? Would they seek to control, to dominate, to impose their will on the galaxy? Or would they learn from the mistakes of the past and build a new order, one based on peace and cooperation, rather than conquest and destruction? Admiral Zane knew that the fate of the galaxy would rest on the choices humanity made in the coming years. The victory was theirs. But the true challenge lay in what they would do with that power. Would they use it to heal the wounds of the past, or would they create new scars, even deeper than the ones they had just inflicted? The peace treaty had been signed, but the road ahead was uncertain. Humanity had proven itself capable of great destruction, but they had also shown the capacity for great resilience, for coming together in the face of overwhelming odds. The question now was whether humanity would choose to be the healers of the galaxy or the conquerors. As the days passed, the once dominant alien races began to rebuild, their worlds scared by the war, but slowly recovering. The peace treaty had granted them a fragile peace, but everyone knew it was a peace built on fear, not trust. The humans had made it clear that they would never forget the destruction the Galactic Council had brought upon them. The galaxy would forever be in awe of humanity's power. But for Admiral Zane and the leaders of humanity, there was no sense of triumph. There was no celebration, no grand victory parade. Instead, there was a quiet sense of reflection, a recognition of the great price they had paid. The faces of the fallen, the men and women who had given everything for this moment, were forever etched into their minds. As the human fleet returned to Earth, the scars of war were still fresh. The people of Earth celebrated their victory, but the leaders knew that the battle for the future had only just begun. They had won the war, but now they had to navigate the complexities of intergalactic diplomacy, the delicate balance of power, and the responsibility that came with being the new superpower of the galaxy. The humans had earned their place at the top, but they also had to prove that they were worthy of it. They had shown that they could fight, that they could survive. But the true test would be whether they could build a future where peace reigned, and where the mistakes of the past were not repeated. Admiral Zane's thoughts wandered back to the question he had asked himself earlier. At what cost? The war had been brutal, the losses had been great, but in the end, humanity had triumphed. The galaxy had learned to fear them, to respect them. But would that fear lead to peace, or would it sow the seeds of future conflict? As the eternal resolve entered Earth's orbit, Zane knew that the true challenge was just beginning. The victory was a heavy burden, one that would weigh on the hearts and minds of the humans for years to come. But it was also an opportunity, a chance to shape a new galactic order, one where humanity could rise to its full potential, not as conquerors, but as leaders. The stars stretched out before him, vast and unknown. The future of the galaxy was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity would shape it. The victory was theirs, but the true test of their legacy would lie in the choices they made in the years to come. As Admiral Zane gazed at the stars, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The galaxy was in awe of humanity's power, but Zane knew that the greatest challenge was yet to come. Would humanity rise to the occasion, or would they become what they had once fought against? Only time would tell. And so, the story of humanity's rise to power ended, but the story of their future, one of peace or tyranny, hope or despair, was just beginning. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would humanity. The new galactic order had been born, and it was up to humanity to decide how that order would unfold.